A couple of bikers walked into a coastal diner looking for trouble. What they found instead was one of the most highly decorated Navy commanders in U.S. history. And what happened next would rip open a $100 million smuggling operation, bring down a criminal empire, and teach the Steel Serpent motorcycle gang a lesson they'd never forget. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one flexing muscle but the quiet woman in the corner, sipping her coffee. They thought they were intimidating a lone woman, but they picked a fight with the wrong one, and their mistake would turn out to be fatal. But before we dive into the full story, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and if you enjoy stories like this. Hit that subscribe button because tomorrow's episode is going to be one you won't want to miss. The morning fog rolled off the ocean in thick coils, swallowing the quiet streets of Port Haven in a damp, silent haze. Commander Sarah Mitchell sat in her usual window booth at Mary's Harbor Diner, watching the lazy swirl of steam rising from her coffee. She'd picked this town for its peace and isolation, a far cry from the classified operations and unspoken missions that had defined her last 2 decades. All she wanted now was calm. Betty Murphy, silver-haired and spry despite her years, shuffled over with a fresh pot in hand. "You're too young to look so tired, dear," she said, pouring more coffee into Sarah's cup. Sarah managed a small smile, appreciating the maternal warmth, but Betty had no idea why. Sarah always sat where she could see both exits, or why her hands still remembered the shape of a sidearm better than they remembered rest. The moment shattered, when 2 motorcycles growled into the lot, their engines loud enough to rattle the window glass. Conversations inside died instantly. Betty's smile faded, her grip tightening on the coffee pot. Sarah glanced up, noting the serpent emblem on their leather jackets, Steel Serpents. Everyone else looked down at their plates. Jake Rattler Davidson swaggered in first, his scarred face contorting into what he likely thought was charm. Mike Crusher Peterson flanked him, both moving like men who had never once paid for the damage they caused. Jake's eyes landed on Sarah, lingered, then slid to Betty. "Betty, sweetheart," he drawled, voice like oil on water. "Missed you at the town meeting." Mayor Hayes was real disappointed. Betty's hands shook slightly as she set the coffee pot down. "Had inventory to do. Jake, you know how it is." Jake stepped closer. "When the mayor calls a meeting, it's not optional. He's trying to grow this town, and he needs loyalty." His hand slammed the counter, making Betty flinch. Sarah didn't move, but her mind recorded everything. Jake's jacket bulged at the shoulder, a meant concealment of a firearm. Mike's knife was tucked into his boot, too obvious. Their confidence was performative, their weapon discipline sloppy. "Maybe," Betty said firmly, "the mayor should focus on running the town instead of letting criminals tell us what to do." The air went still. Jake's smile disappeared. "What did you just say to me?" he growled, leaning across the counter. Sarah moved before she knew it. 2 decades of command instinct took over as she grabbed Jake's wrist and applied pressure to the nerves that made him cry out. She said. Sarah replied in a calm voice that cut through the silence, that the mayor should do his job. Jake tried to pull away, but her grip was unrelenting. Mike flinched forward but froze as Sarah turned her head slightly. "Let him go," Jake threatened, "or my boy here's gonna make you regret it." Sarah's smile was cold. "Will he? Because from where I'm sitting, you've got 3 choices. Will you leave? 2, you try something stupid and I put you both in the hospital. Or 3, she increased the pressure, and Jake's knees wobbled. "We find out how many bones I can break before you hit the floor." "You have no idea who you're dealing with," Jake snarled. "Actually, I do," Sarah replied, her voice still calm. "Jake Davidson, dishonorably discharged in 18. Been running protection rackets with the Steel Serpents up and down the coast. Recently moved into bigger shipments, drugs, weapons, maybe even people. Did I miss anything?" Jake's face turned pale. Mike twitched toward his boot, but Sarah didn't look at him. "Don't," she said. "Your draw is slow, and you telegraph like an amateur. If you go for that knife, this ends badly for you." For a moment, nothing moved. Then Jake raised his hands. "All right, we're leaving, but this ain't over." Sarah released him and stepped back. "It can be, that's up to you." The bikers backed out, trying to keep their swagger. Jake rubbed his wrist as he threw one last glare over his shoulder. "Who the hell are you?" Betty whispered, stunned. Sarah took a sip of her cold coffee. Just someone who's seen enough bullies, but she knew this wasn't the end. Jake was right. She'd made herself a target, and her instincts told her this gang was just the surface. Something much deeper and darker was lurking beneath Port Haven's quiet. Betty placed a fresh coffee and a slice of apple pie in front of her. "Whatever comes next," she said softly, "you're not alone." Sarah nodded, already replaying possibilities. In her mind, she'd come here to escape, but sometimes peace had to be earned. If the Steel Serpents wanted a war, she'd show them why commanders were the last enemies you wanted. "No," she said quietly, pulling out a phone she swore she'd never use again. "I'm not alone, neither are you." That evening, Sarah sat upstairs in her small apartment above the diner, field stripping her Glock 19 with muscle memory so ingrained she barely noticed. The day's events spun in her head like gears clicking into place. A knock came. "It's open," she said without looking. Sheriff Tom Cooper stepped in, worry etched in his sun-worn face. Heard you had a run-in with Jake and his boys, he said. News to me, Sarah replied, reassembling the gun. Just had a conversation with some impolite customers. Cooper sat across from her. Commander Mitchell. Sarah, he corrected himself. I ran a background check when you moved in. 20 years Navy commendations. Stuff so classified even I couldn't get past the red tape. Sarah met his gaze. Then you know I can handle myself. That's what worries me, he said. The Steel Serpents aren't just muscle anymore. They've got ties, real deep ones. My deputy intercepted a shipment last month that should have flagged the feds. Before we could dig in, orders came down from the state to back off. He lowered his voice. Mayor Hayes holds meetings at their clubhouse now. Half the city council drives cars bought with money no public salary could justify. New cars they shouldn't be able to afford. And suddenly the Port Authority had funding for extensive renovations. Sarah knew something was off. I've got a teenage daughter, the sheriff muttered. I can't risk. So you turn a blind eye, Sarah finished for him. I do what I can without getting my people killed. Cooper stood, adjusting his belt. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Just be careful. Jake's not the real power in the Steel Serpents. His boss Marcus Cross is coming to town next week. The man's got connections to smuggling rings on 3 continents. Sarah's face remained unreadable, but her thoughts ran wild. She knew that name Cross. She'd heard it during her last operation with naval intelligence. That mission had gone sideways. 2 of her teammates, Johnson and Martinez, hadn't made it out. Thanks for the warning, she said flatly. As Cooper reached the door, he turned back. For what it's worth, Betty Murphy's a good woman. Been serving coffee and pie since I was a kid. What you did for her, about time someone stood up. Once he was gone, Sarah reached for a phone she hadn't touched in months. Reynolds speaking, came the voice on the other end. Mike, it's Mitchell. Remember that smuggling OP in Singapore? The one that got Johnson and Martinez killed? A pause. The one that got away? Yeah, I think I found their supply chain, Port Haven. Silence, then Christ, Sarah. You're supposed to be retired. I need everything you can dig up on Marcus Cross and the Steel Serpents. Make official channels only. I don't want to burn your sources. Mike sighed. Give me 48 hours. And Siri, be careful. Cross isn't someone you want to tangle with alone. Who said I'm alone? The next morning, as Sarah helped Betty open the diner, the roar of motorcycles broke the morning quiet. These weren't Steel Serpents. Their leather cuts bore the insignia of the Iron Wolves. The lead rider, a massive man known only as Stone, made eye contact as they rolled by. There was recognition in that. Looking to message more trouble? Betty asked. Sarah shook her head. Maybe not. The Iron Wolves were different. Former military. Mostly, they didn't prey on civilians. Sarah's instincts told her they could be allies. Her phone buzzed. Mike's text had arrived. Data coming through. Cross is definitely your guy. Got coordinates for port facilities. Also, local intel says Iron Wolves might be your enemy's enemy. Sarah smiled. Pieces were clicking into place. The lunch crowd trickled in, and many regulars greeted Sarah with newfound respect. Word had spread about the confrontation. Around noon, Deputy Sarah Martinez arrived, heading straight for Sarah's booth. Got something you need to see, she said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photo surveillance shots from the port. Steel Serpent members were overseeing container movements in the dead of night, guarded by professional security teams that didn't fit their usual style. Official-looking documents from last night, Martinez added. And they're getting sloppy. Jake's got his people watching this place, watching you, but they're not subtle. Sarah had noticed the 2 Serpent prospects parked across the street, trying too hard to look casual. Your boss know you're showing me this? She asked. Martinez's smile was grim. Tom's a good man, but he scared me. I'm tired of watching these bastards tear apart our town. Betty helped raise me after my mum died. I've got her back same as you. Sarah studied her. There was steel behind those eyes. Another. Eli, be careful, Sarah warned. If they find out I can handle myself, and I'm not the only one who's had enough. As if on cue, the rumble of engines returned. The Iron Wolves were back, this time pulling into the diner's lot. Stone dismounted, filling the doorway as he entered. His eyes scanned the room, before locking on Sarah. Mind if we join you? Deputy Martinez tensed, hand near her holster, but Sarah gave a nod. Stone and 3 officers slid into the booth. Betty appeared with coffee like nothing was out of the ordinary. Heard you had words with Jake, Stone said after she left. Man holds grudges. Is that why you're here? To warn me? Stone chuckled. No, ma'am. We're here because the Steel Serpents are moving contraband through our turf. Without permission, military-grade hardware. The kind that gets people killed. He nodded toward Martinez. We figured you might be interested in a conversation about mutual interests. Sarah leaned back, studying them. Posture, demeanor. Military, no doubt. And unlike the Serpents, they met her eyes with respect and not challenge. I'm listening. Deputy stays, she added before Stone could speak again. She's part of this. Fair enough, Stone said. Cross is coming to oversee a major shipment, big enough that Jake's crew is nervous. We've got intel, manpower, and motive. What we need is someone who knows how to run an op like this. Someone with Navy training. Small town. Military folks talk. Word gets around. His voice softened. I knew Johnson, good man. His name lingered in the silence. If we do this, Sarah said slowly, it's my way, clean, precise. By the book, no cowboy crap. Stone nodded. Wouldn't have it any other way, Commander. As the wolves left, Martinez exhaled. You sure about this? Sarah watched them mount up. Across the street, the two serpent prospects were making panicked phone calls. No, she admitted. But sometimes you work with the devil you know too. Take down the one you don't. Night fell over Port Haven as Sarah's phone buzzed. Mike had sent encrypted files, satellite imagery, warehouse layouts, documents tracing shell companies to the Steel Serpents. She was studying them when a knock came. Betty whispered, "You've got visitors." In the alley. Sarah grabbed her Glock and followed. In the shadows, she found Stone, his sergeant-at-arms, and unexpectedly Sheriff Cooper. We've got a problem, Cooper said without preamble. Cross isn't just visiting. He's moving his entire operation here. Permanently. Why? Sarah asked, already piecing it together. Port Haven's perfect, Stone replied. Remote compliant officials, access to sea routes. But that's not the real reason. He handed her a folder. Inside were photos of men arriving at the local airstrip, faces Sarah recognized. Members of the Singapore Ring. They're consolidating, she murmured. Using the Serpents as cover for a global hub. It gets worse, Cooper added. Mayor Hayes just called an emergency council meeting. They're slashing our police budget by 60%. Half my deputies gone, including Martinez. Clearing the board, Sarah said, making sure there's no resistance. Cross arrives in 3 days, Stone said. Jake's tightening security. Whatever they're planning, it's big. Sarah flipped through the photos again. They'll expect resistance from cops, maybe from other gangs, but not from a naval intelligence operation. Not exactly, Cooper corrected. Not exactly, Stone smiled. Half my crew's former special forces, Rangers, Marine Recon, even a couple Delta guys. We kept it quiet, but we've got the training. Sarah arched a brow. A biker club full of spec ops. Someone's got to protect the little guy, Stone said simply. We've tracked Cross for months, but we needed someone with your experience to put it all together. The back door opened again. Martinez stepped out. We've got movement. 3 Serpent trucks headed for the warehouse district. They're consolidating assets, Sarah said. Getting ready to defend what matters. She turned to Cooper. I need cover. Deputies you trust. Traffic stops, license checks, anything to stall them and gather intel. They'll complain to Hayes, Cooper warned. Let them make them sloppy. She turned to Stone. Need your people to start probing their defenses. Nothing flashy, just enough to keep them jumpy. Stone grinned as he leaned back, the glint in his eye matching the fire in his words already started. My boys ran a few bikes past their checkpoints earlier. Got them all spun up about potential rivals moving in. Sarah nodded, eyes locked, on her phone as she pulled up a fresh set of satellite images. Good. Let them expect gang warfare. They'll never see a surgical strike coming. She turned the screen for everyone to see. We've got 3 days to map their security, identify their weak points, and prep for the main event. Martinez raised an eyebrow. And what exactly is the main event? Sarah's voice was ice. We let Cross set up shop exactly how he wants. Let him bring in his international network, his muscle, his contacts, and then we take the whole thing down in one shot. Cooper folded his arms. We'll need one more piece of the puzzle. Sarah looked up. What's that? Evidence, Cooper said, firm. Enough to bypass Hayes entirely and go straight to the feds. The kind of stuff even dirty politicians can't. Ignored from her quiet corner of the diner, Betty spoke up. I might be able to help with that. All eyes turned to her as she calmly wiped her hands on her apron. This place has been here for 40 years. Everyone comes through eventually. Even the ones who think they're too powerful to be seen here, and everybody talks. Sarah studied her. You've been keeping track. Betty didn't flinch. Names, dates, conversations. I might be a diner owner, but I'm not blind. I've known for years that someday someone would need the truth about what's really going on in this town. She reached into her apron and pulled out a worn leather notebook, thick with pages and age. 9 years of notes. Everything from Hayes' first meeting with the Steel Serpents to which council members suddenly started buying new trucks and second homes. Stone let out a whistle. Ma'am, you might be the most dangerous person here. Sarah looked at her with new respect. Meet back here tomorrow night. Stone, bring your best people. Sheriff, we'll need everything Betty's got, plus whatever your deputies can gather legally. We've got one shot at this. As the group broke up, Betty reached for Sarah's arm. You're not just doing this for the town, are you? Sarah hesitated, haunted memories flashing across her face, her fallen team, the mission gone wrong. Sometimes, being personal just means you'll fight harder to get it right. Back in her apartment, Sarah laid out the intel. Cross thought he was expanding his empire. He had no idea he was walking into a sniper's crosshair 3 years in the making. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mike. Satellite shows more movement. Whatever they're planning, it's massive. Watch your six, Sarah replied. Don't worry. This time, we're ready for them. The next morning brought a tense buzz through town. Martinez and his few remaining trusted deputies started pulling over Steel Serpent vehicles under the guise of routine checks, while the Iron Wolves made strategic appearances near gang turf, driving by just long enough to send a message. Sarah, ever composed, sat in her regular booth at Murphy's Diner, eyes trained across the street where Jake and 2 lieutenants were locked in a heated argument. Their frustration was obvious even from a distance. Your coffee's getting cold, Betty said, sliding into the booth and placing the notebook on the table. This is everything I've got on Hayes and his buddies' 10 years of dirt. Meetings that weren't supposed to happen. Deals made in the shadows. Sarah flipped through the pages, her jaw tightening. Betty ... This isn't just weapon smuggling. They've been laundering money through half the businesses in this town. Betty nodded solemnly. Why do you think I started writing it all down? My Harold, God rest his soul, used to say knowledge is power. When he died and they started trying to force me to sell the diner, I knew I needed insurance. Just then, a commotion outside snapped their attention to the window. Jake was slamming one of his own guys against a wall, screaming in his face. The pressure was clearly getting to them. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Stone, package secured. Meet at the old cannery. I need to go, Sarah told Betty. Stay alert, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. The cannery on the town's edge stood hollow and rusted, a graveyard of industrial silence. Inside, Stone's core team waited, along with an unexpected guest, a bound and gagged Steel Serpent prospect. Caught him snooping around our turf, Stone said. Figured he might be worth questioning. Sarah squatted in front of the young man, recognizing him instantly. What's your name, kid? Titamy, he stammered once the gag was off. All right, Tommy, Sarah said. Let's talk about the shipment coming in with Cross. Tommy's eyes widened. I don't know anything about Save It, Sarah snapped. You wear the prospect cut. That means grunt, workloading, unloading, standing guard. You know things. The only question is whether you tell us now or we get creative. Tommy's face turned pale. They'll kill me. Stone leaned in close. Kid, what do you think they'll do when they find out you got caught by us? That was all it took. Tommy spilled everything: schedules, security layouts, guard shifts. But it was the final detail that turned Sarah's blood to ice. They've got some kind of list, he said, barely above a whisper. Names, locations. Cross is bringing it personally. Jake said it's worth more than the weapons. Sarah's eyes met Stone's. If that list was real, it could expose entire trafficking operations, even name every crooked official on Cross's payroll. One more thing, Tommy said, trembling. They know someone's working against them. Jake called in reinforcements, not bikers, professionals. Sarah's phone buzzed. Martinez problem. Hayes just suspended Cooper. Appointed Jake's brother as interim sheriff. Sarah nodded to Stone. Put Tommy somewhere safe. We may need him again. Back at the diner, Sarah joined Martinez, Cooper, and Betty. Cooper looked utterly defeated. They're moving faster than we thought. Hayes says it's a routine review, but we all know better. Martinez added, they're consolidating power, getting everything locked down before Cross arrives. My badge probably won't mean much by tomorrow. Sarah's phone vibrated. Mike again. Major movement. Multiple vehicles heading your way. Not gang, professional operators. Watch yourself. As if summoned by the text, 3 black SUVs crept past the diner, windows tinted, engines humming low. They're not even hiding anymore, Martinez muttered. They don't need to, Sarah said coldly. They think they own the town now. That makes them bold. Bold makes them sloppy. Betty's gaze followed the vehicles out of sight. What do we do now? Sarah's jaw set. We change the plan. They're expecting resistance from law enforcement or a rival gang, so we give them exactly what they're looking for while we hit them from the one direction they'll never see coming.